name is Kathy Thompson, President of the Red Clay School District Board of Education. The board is thankful you've come out tonight and grateful to have you here. The January 20th, 2021 board meeting of the Red Clay School District is called to order. Welcome to the new year, and more importantly, happy Inauguration Day. It's 7 p.m. This meeting is being held electronically. On March 12th, 2020, Governor Carney issued a declaration of state of emergency for the state of Delaware due to a public health threat. The state of emergency allows all public meetings of executive branch bodies, including boards of education, to be conducted electronically, either by means of telephone conference or video conference call, or a combination of the both. We are holding this meeting as a hybrid meeting tonight, so people can access the meeting remotely via Zoom or in person at Cab Calloway School of the Arts. This is our third hybrid meeting, but the 11th time we've had an electronic meeting using Zoom, and we thank you for your continued support and patience as we continue to encounter new issues and work through details. We learn something new each meeting, and we get better each time. The information regarding this meeting, including the information on how to access the meeting in person and/or electronically, was published on January 13th, 2020 on the Red Clay School District website under the Public Notices sections. Individuals may participate in this meeting either via Zoom conferencing or in person at Cab Calloway, and may speak by completing the public comment form available and submitting it at least 1/2 hour prior to the start of the meeting, if in person, or if electronic, or by presenting the form at the meeting prior to the start thereof. If electronic, in order to speak, you must have provided a complete Zoom name, first and last name, on the public comment form, and the name you submitted must match what shows up on your Zoom account. As a courtesy to others and to prevent unnecessary disruption, all devices will be muted unless and until you are recognized to speak. As mentioned, if you signed up to speak, your Zoom name must be what is put into the public comment form and must match what's on your Zoom account. School board members appearing in person will have active microphones. Those accessing it electronically will have their mics activated when they text us and indicate they want to speak and/or during votes. We limit unmuting both in person and remote at the same time because there seems to be feedback in the room when that occurs. We'll get a taste of that during voting, and we've had that a couple of times already, so please bear with us. Since board members are both in person and remote via Zoom, in order to maximize the effectiveness and orderliness of this meeting, we ask that we will have a roll call vote for each item to be voted on. Each board member should identify themselves by name prior to speaking, and just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded. And with that, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
That's Mr. Wilson is moving. Is there a second?
Second by Ashley Sabo.
Second by Ms. Sabo. And Maria, we should have a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bone?
Yes.
Mr. Casper?
He's texting me. I wonder if he can hear us.
Mr. Casper is trying to log on.
He cannot find the link for the meeting. Do you have it readily available? Tony, are you able to send it to him?
I told him where to find it.
Can you send it to him again?
Okay. Mr. Matthews?
Yes. And the link is on our website in the public notice if he's having trouble finding it. Just throwing that out there.
Dr. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Casper?
I don't think he's on yet, Maria.
Okay, so it's anonymous vote with 6 yeses, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I just texted him. Okay. Okay, and now we will have student, staff, community recognition, followed by public comment. So Ms. Green, is Taylor going to do the? community recognition?
She should.
Okay. Is she on remote? Okay.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Miss Green is on remote. That's okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Now we can, Taylor. Thank you.
Hey, well, good evening, everyone. Tonight,
Good
we're
evening.
excited to recognize 2 recent achievements in Red Clay schools. First, Red Clay is pleased to announce that our school community has received national recognition for the quality of school psychological services provided to our students. In December of 2020, our school psychological services program and staff received the recognition of proficient status from the National Association of School Psychologists, or NASP, Excellence in School Psychological Services Recognition Program. That's ESPS for short. This recognition reflects the organizational commitment and hard work of Red Clay school psychologists who support the learning and mental health needs of all students so that they can thrive at home, in school, and throughout life. The National ESPS program recognizes districts who have achieved or are working toward delivery of high quality and sustainable school psychological practices as defined in the NASP practice model. Submissions to the program go through a rigorous review process from a team of trained reviewers assessing the application based on 5 potential recognition categories. Specifically, proficient status is awarded to districts that provide evidence that school psychologists are providing a broad range of services and that there is a solid foundation and significant progress toward implementing a sustainable, system-wide infrastructure to implement all 6 organizational principles articulated in the NASP practice model. These principles support school psychologists' ability to provide a comprehensive range of services to improve students' well-being and academic outcomes. We are incredibly proud of the accomplishments of our school psychologist team as a result of this process. Red Clay's ESPS recognition is effective for 5 years through December of 2025. Importantly, the ESPS program provides a framework for continued improvement in service delivery over time. This includes the effort to continue working toward meeting the national recommended ratio of 1 school psychologist to every 500 students, which will help increase access to needed services for our students and families. We're committed to doing this work because our school psychologists are critical to the positive outcomes of our students, families, and schools. Congratulations on the successful efforts of our Red Clay school psychologists for their excellence in school psychological services national recognition. First, and we have a lot of folks to recognize here, so it's a long list. First, we want to acknowledge our lead psychologist team. Gabby Curry, District Special Services Coordinator and former lead psychologist, who took the lead on writing the NASP application. Kelly Healy, school psychologist for Cook Elementary School and lead psychologist for Red Clay Elementary Schools. Eric Pizzini, school psychologist for Cab Calloway and lead psychologist for mentoring in Red Clay. Deirdre Tieford, school psychologist for the district autism team and lead psychologist for Red Clay special programs. And Cecilia Till, school psychologist on the behavior support team and lead psychologist for Red Clay secondary schools. We also want to acknowledge all of our school psychologists for their dedication to supporting students, staff, and families at their schools. You may not know it, but in Red Clay, we're very fortunate to have at least 1 full-time psychologist at every school, as well as district-level specialty teams to support all schools, including the bilingual evaluation team, the autism services team, and the behavior support team. So thank you to the following school psychologists. From our elementary schools, Leah Cunningham, Linda Getman, and Vanessa Relvis, Laura Bitzer, Maria Ma, Kelly Healy, Rebecca Bertuccio, Sky Beckley, Faith Yellen, Kara Feeney, Carly Herring, Brian Garber, Matt Capillion, Elizabeth Russell, Sarah Barton, Shadra Guerra, Heather Van Stolk, Aisha Solomon, Maureen Darlington, and Taryn Stokes. From our secondary schools, LaWanda Burke, Aaron DePasquale, Kelly Wayne, Allison McDonough, Eric Pizzini, Kelly Nickel, Renee Salter, Fatik Helik, Ashley Patterson, Jasmina Chitani, Jessica Cragil, Melissa Weil, Stephanie Valenzuela, Emily Klein, Antonella McGugan, Shanae Moore, and Richard Dowdy. From our special programs, Megan Latzi, Kathleen Eakin, Kelly Rose, Kadisha Mack, Amelia Brickhouse, Idris Harrell, Bryn Tatarowitz, Rachel DeMeo, Michelle Salvatore, Lauren Lee, Emily Tolliver, Dorina Danis, Lauren Lee, Richard Gilius, Idris Harrell, Jessica Cook, Cecilia Till, Lauren Messick, Deirdre Tieford, Andrew Baylor, Jackie Pollard, Kimberly McCann, Claudia Rosa, and Emily Curtin. And last but not least, congratulations, of course, to Dr. Sarah Celestin, Director of Special Services, on this outstanding achievement. They're all watching from home, so let's give them a nice round of applause. Tonight, we're also thrilled to announce that the Delaware Selection Committee for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching has selected Red Clay's own Sonia Saunders as a Delaware State finalist in the Science Award category for grades K to 6. She's also watching from home, but you can see her picture there on the screen. A 20-year veteran, Sonia teaches 5th grade at Brandywine Spring School. As a classroom teacher, she teaches ELA, math, social studies, and science. She's worked on several state committees for leading the change to next generation standards, as well as national committees for smarter balanced math and reading. At the state level, she has developed meaningful watershed environmental education curriculum with partners from the Delaware Department of Education, DENREC, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Children in Nature, and the Ashland Nature Society. Sonia is a certified National Geographic educator and teaches her students through the lens of curiosity and discovery. She incorporates National Geographic's geo-inquiry model, which encourages students to appreciate the various dimensions of society as they seek to create harmonious and sustainable solutions for our future. As a nature-loving environmentalist, Sonia has led the Green School Pathways program at Brandywine Spring School for the past 3 years. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has challenged students' progress, exciting projects for the schoolyard habitat, health and wellness, and energy pathways still continue. As a Delaware Teacher Institute researcher, Sonia has published math, science, and geography units, which further enrich her students' learning experience in the classroom. Most recently, Sonia developed a science pacing guide and ELA science connections for Red Clay's 5th grade teachers to use during in-person and remote teaching. Sonia continues to serve Brandywine Spring School as the Science Curriculum Council member for elementary science and shows leadership through example, mentorship, and pursuing lifelong learning. Principal Kurt Bedford describes Sonia as a passionate educator who works extremely hard in making real-world connections between her content and students. She goes above and beyond her scheduled workday to make sure all of her students are engaged in learning activities that promote their personal growth. For this award program, state finalists are forwarded to a national selection committee composed of K-12 teachers, administrators, university professors, and STEM education researchers who will meet to select the awardees at the national level. The teachers chosen to be presidential awardees will be notified by the White House, honored in Washington, D.C., will receive $10,000 from the National Science Foundation, and join a cadre of award-winning teachers who can impact STEM education in Delaware and nationally. Please join me in congratulating Sonia Saunders for having been selected for this prestigious honor in recognition of truly outstanding teaching and leadership in STEM. Yay, Sonia. That concludes our recognitions.
Thank you, Ms. Green. And congratulations to our winners, to our recognees. We really appreciate all that you're doing. So now we get to the public comment portion of the meeting. And again, thank you for coming out tonight to attend our meeting and share your thoughts. Under Board Policy 2006, the board encourages the staff and community to share concerns regarding school issues and educational programs. Sharing can be done verbally, in writing, and/or by speaking at the board meeting. Under Board Policy 2006, the board shall provide a time period of up to 30 minutes at each board meeting for public comments, which time period may be extended at the discretion of the board. Speakers are requested to give a written copy of their remarks to the superintendent. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute period. The time will be monitored and the speakers will be able to see the time on the screen. There's a timer on the screen. Speakers will be unmuted by the Red Clay team when it's time to speak, and when time is up, the mic will be muted. So our first speaker is Miss Abigail Cooper, and welcome, Miss Cooper.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board and for Mr. Green for letting us make these public comments. I begin with Red Clay. We are all in Red Clay. We are all about the data. So I would like to share some sobering data to you. According to a joint report from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association, 49 states, including Delaware, New York City, DC, Puerto Rico, and Guam reported a cumulative number of COVID cases in children ages 0 through 17 at 2,500,000 prior to January 7th of 2021. During the week of January 7th, 2021 through January 14th, it was further reported that there were 211,000 new cases of COVID in children across the reporting areas. On May 21st, 2020, there were 28 child deaths reported due to COVID-19. As of January 14th, there are 191 deaths in children across the reporting areas. Children can and do get this deadly virus. They get sick and even die from it. One child death is one too many. Now let's break it down for Delaware. There are over 200,000 children in the state of Delaware, according to the 2019 reporting statistics. According to the revised data dashboard, there are 300 total cases from September 1, 2020 to January 8, 2021 in students in the K-12 district. The new and improved data dashboard clearly states the following disclaimer. The previous dashboard was based on Delaware's understanding of COVID in August of 2020. We have learned a lot since the summer and no longer believe the reopening dashboard was an accurate reflection of the conditions in our schools. What did you learn that allowed the data to suddenly say it was safe to return? Considering that schools have been in session for 17 weeks, students have been in person for only 5 weeks total. There is an obvious reason why the number of cases are so low in children, because they haven't been exposed to children in large groups. There is no data to back up the farce that the new and improved data dashboard is remotely accurate. The new dashboard is a convenient way of bouncing numbers around to put children back in an environment where their safety is being compromised. Schools and classrooms are not safe for anyone due to the circumstances we are in. So here's the answer. Let's get on board with Operation Warp Speed. We all get vaccinated and that will solve the problem, except there is no FDA approved vaccine to prevent COVID. The clinical trials have supported the vaccine has been shown to prevent COVID following 2 doses given 1 month apart. The duration of the protection against COVID is unknown. And even after you have received both doses of the vaccine, it may still be possible for you to become infected with the virus and transmit it. The Moderna vaccine for COVID may not protect everyone. Children cannot get vaccinated. From April 1st, 2020 to the present date, there have been over 486,000 people that have tested negative for COVID. However, 71,311 have tested positive and 1,021 people have died.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Next up is Miss Elizabeth Laguerre. Welcome, Miss Laguerre.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our only instructions are to complete our daily self-screenings, maintain social distancing, wear a mask, and wash our hands. Despite maintaining our distance, we're still expected to differentiate and accommodate for our diverse learners, which is what we want to do as educators anyway. That is very difficult to do from a distance. I can't be an effective educator from 6 feet away. At the end of the day, I find myself reflecting on, if I was diagnosed with COVID tomorrow, who was I less than 6 feet apart with for longer than 15 minutes cumulatively and would then need to quarantine? If I'm providing my students with the help they need to access curriculum, that would be the majority of my English language learners, students with IEPs, and students that need more positive reinforcement to attend to tasks. Yes, private schools have been back since September, but only 2% of students with IEPs in the country have IEPs. That's 2% that attend private schools have IEPs. That's because only public and charter schools are required by law to provide such services. And if students are enrolled in a private school, they're referred to their local public school or evaluation and oftentimes implementation. There's no comparison. If I put my students learning first, I'm breaching that 3 feet minimum of social distance with the majority of my class. If I put our safety first, then they aren't getting one-on-one help. And if they aren't getting the appropriate services, why such a push to be in person? When I put safety first, I'm no longer a teacher, I'm a lecturer to 6-year-olds. It's just not developmentally appropriate, and it's just not fun. Kids learn more when they're enjoying themselves, working with their peers, and when they're comfortable. Is Zoom a great option? Absolutely not, but it's currently our only safe option. When teaching remotely, we're allowing our students to be kids during breaks and throughout the day, in contrast to in-person instruction, where we're stripping away all the things that make being a kid magical: exploration, imagination, play, and fun. I felt like I was reaching my students more on Zoom because none of us were even half as stressed, because we weren't worried about proper mask wearing because they fall down constantly, and maintaining social distancing because 6-year-olds don't know how far apart 6 feet is. We were just apart, but together. It's just a matter of time before this all boils over. And what side of history do you want to be on when it does? At the end of the day, you need to decide, is it worth risking staff and student lives to have students sit in their desks all day and not receive anywhere near the education they deserve? Just give us enough time to get both rounds of the vaccine before throwing us all in a situation that isn't worth the risk, because right now, in-person learning sucks and so does Zoom. You'll never win this battle because there's no perfect option, so just spare our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laguerre. Next is Ms. Jenna Parente. Welcome, Ms. Parente.
Hello, my name is Gina Paranti. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to speak tonight, as I've never done this before. I'm a third grade teacher at Brandywine Springs, and since starting in the district 12 years ago, I've had several times where I didn't have the same resources as my colleagues. Sometimes I'd speak to my administration, and other times I'd let it go and just go with the flow. This time, with the situation we're currently in, I want everyone to see the lack of resources I have. I've spoken to my administration, and they have tried finding other solutions, but to put it bluntly, we're out of bodies. I currently have 40 children on my roster to teach online on Zoom. Never in my 16 years of teaching have I had this many children that I needed to be responsible for educating at once. I'm asking for resources and help. I realized last March how much I loved teaching and couldn't wait to do it in person. It has been very hard on my mental health, and I want to be brave and speak for those that can't or that are too afraid. I know we're all working towards the same goal, and I know everyone is working hard. Most of us are overwhelmed, but the teaching staff needs quality resources and compassion. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak, and may my good intentions honor your good intentions.
Thank you, Ms. Parente. Next is Mr. David Jones. Welcome, Mr. Jones. Hello, Mr. Jones. Does Mr. Jones need to do something?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, Mr. Jones, can you please unmute your screen?
I got
Okay.
it. Can you hear me?
Got it. Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that. Good evening, board members. My name is David Jones. I've been a teacher in Red Clay for 20 years, and I just can't seem to understand the thought process just returning to in-person learning at this current time. I'm not going to go over the numbers, as Ms. Cooper did a great job at doing that. Why didn't we return to school in August when there were fewer cases and less deaths? It wasn't safe. Why did we return to online learning shortly after the Thanksgiving holiday? And why didn't you have a big holiday dinner and get together with your friends and family? Oh, it wasn't safe. Perhaps it wasn't just the holiday that made numbers spike in the state. Another variable was we returned to in-person learning. Why didn't we return right after the new year? And why wasn't there a huge crowd in Times Square or anywhere for that matter? Oh yeah, it wasn't safe. Miraculously, a week later, as the numbers and death toll continue to rise, it's all safe. Most districts that are going to school are staggering their students and only going 2 days a week. We staggered our students the first week we came back, and then we went back to full on school. A major part of school is socializing. So school and social distancing is almost an oxymoron. Students miss being able to gather, talk, and touch and play with their friends, which they still can't do in school. The point of in-person learning is to be able to assist students up close and model for them. We defeat the purpose of in-person learning while teaching while social distancing with masks on. When you're teaching students how to read and pronounce letter sounds, they need to be able to see your mouth, your tongue placement, the way your mouth moves. All that is very important when teaching someone how to read. We're not able to do that. So another question is, why are teachers that teach online students required to come into the building and teach from their classrooms when they're doing the exact same thing they were doing at home? Is it to risk their lives and the lives of everyone else in the building? Honestly, is it worth your life? Is it worth your child's life? Are we prepared to have funerals for our staff and students? We should always plan for the worst, but hope for the best. And right now we're going on a lot of hope. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We do not see Catherine Ernst, and so the next speaker will be Mr. Stephen Fackenthal. Welcome, Mr. Fackenthal.
Good evening, Ms. Thompson. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thanks. Dear Red Clay School Board, my name is Stephen Fackenthal, general music teacher at Ritchie Elementary and vice president of the Red Clay Education Association. On behalf of our CEA, I'm here to ask the board to consider Board Policy 2002, which states the board shall be responsible for acting as a court of appeal for employees, students, and the public when issues involve board policy and their fair implementation, or when otherwise directed by law. The board may exercise the above legal powers and duties only when convened in a legally constituted meeting. Specifically, we're appealing to you to overturn the decision of Mr. Green to keep our schools open. As we shared with Mr. Green and you, based off a member survey that nearly 70% of our members responded to, 78% said they do not feel comfortable returning to in-person learning, while 22% share they are comfortable. On the second question, 83% of members responded that in-person learning should be on hold until a second round of vaccine has been offered to staff members. While
We lost you, Mr. Fackenthal.
I'm sorry. Oh, hello.
Mr. Fackenthal?
Uh,
Okay, so hang on a second, Mr. Fackenthal.
okay.
It's the AV.
Okay. Let me know when to go.
It'll be a minute, okay?
Sure. Will my time be paused? All right.
Yes, your time should be
paused his
paused.
time.
You should be able to get your time back.
Thank you.
Is what I saw. We'll have to add it.
Just give him 2 minutes.
Okay, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We'll just pause.
All right. Great.
Can he have his time back? Because now we're at 1 minute, 9 seconds, and he was way above that when he was stopped.
Okay. All right. It looks like it's okay. Specifically, we are appealing to you to overturn the decision of Mr. Green to keep our schools open. As we shared with Mr. Green and you, based off a member survey that nearly 70% of our members responded to, 78% said they do not feel comfortable returning to in-person learning, while 22% shared they are comfortable. On the second question, 83% of members responded that in-person learning
I lost him on my end.
Mr. Fackenthal, can you hear me? Mr. Fackenthal? We're searching for Mr. Fackenthal.
Hello, can I go? I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't, we had a technical IT glitch in here, Mr.
Oh.
Fackenthal. So they're resetting your time and we can hear you at this point. So sorry for the problem.
It's okay. All right. May I just restart?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hold on a minute though. Wait till the clock gets to the right place, okay?
Okay.
We're just giving you the 3 minutes, Mr.
No, I
Fackenthal.
appreciate that. I'll just restart when you're ready.
Okay, now we're
Okay,
going.
thanks.
Go.
My name is Stephen Fackenthal, general music teacher at Ritchie Elementary and vice president of Red Clay Education Association. On behalf of RCEA, I'm here to ask the board to consider Board Policy 2002, which states the board shall be responsible for acting as a court of appeal for employees, students, and the public when issues involve board policy and their fair implementation or when otherwise directed by law. The board may exercise the legal powers and duties only when convened in a legally constituted meeting. Specifically, we are appealing to you to overturn the decision of Mr. Green to keep our schools open. As we shared with Mr. Green and you, based off a member survey that nearly 70% of our members responded to, 78% said they do not feel comfortable returning to in-person learning, while 22% shared they were comfortable. On the second question, 83% of our members responded that in-person learning should be on hold until after a second round of vaccines has been offered to staff members, while 17% said no. Finally, we received a few hundred comments from members sharing concerns about potentially hazardous or unsafe working conditions in buildings. We appreciate Mr. Green's commitment to the safety of our educators from the concerns brought forth. Let me be clear, we want to be in school. That is why we do our job. We sacrifice personal time, money, and our health for this job. Unfortunately, this crisis is pushing us to a point that we are not willing to sacrifice. Our educators do not feel safe. Respectfully, please consider this change. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fackenthal. And my understanding is that Miss Rachel Starrett is not here either. Okay, so with that, we are done with public comment and we move on to the approval of the minutes. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session from December 16th, 2020?
So moved.
So moved, was that,
Jose Matthews.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I second. This is Jose Matthews.
Okay, and who?
Dr. Bohm.
Dr. Bohm moved and Mr. Matthews seconded. Okay. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, Maria, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bone,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
unanimous vote, motion carries.
And now, is there a motion to approve the minutes from the regular session of our board meeting on December 16th, 2020?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sabo seconds. Any comments? Hearing none. We need another vote, please, Maria.
Dr. Bone,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Okay. So now we move on to the action items. And the first action item is tax abatement. It's the recommendation that the Red Clay Board of Education approve the tax credit request for 702 Halstead Road, parcel number 0607700260 for the period July 1, 2014 to June 30, 2019 as submitted. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Sabo moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Wilson seconds. And do we want to explain I don't know if,
We can.
Okay.
702 Halsted Road, again, the parcel number 0607700260 is a property located in the Brandywine School District. It is a single-family home. In May 2019, an HVAC permit application revealed that the property had been misclassified as a full brick instead of a full frame brick, which resulted in a higher assessed value since its original construction. An assessment review was completed and approved by Newcastle County. The property was reassessed and the county CFO approved the credit for the 5 years from 2015 to 2019. Newcastle County approved the resolution number 2-123 on July 23rd, 2020, a credit for the years from 1984 to 2014. A tax credit request was submitted to Brandywine School District and approved by the Board of Education for the years covering July 1st, 2014 through July 30th, 2019. While the property is located in the Brandywine School District, approval is needed from all 4 districts impacted by Newcastle County tax pool. And again, it's recommended that the board approve what you just took action on because we are part of the Newcastle County tax pool. And just so that taxpayers and the public knows, the estimated red clay tax credit for the preceding 5-year period is $72.77.
thank you, Mr. Green. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Maria, may we take a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews? Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Dr. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
The next action item is a donation. So did you want to explain that, Dr. Green?
Yeah,
Green.
Mr. Tony Burns so generously donated audiovisual equipment to Thomas McCain High School valued at $3,500 for their audio, radio, and career pathways program. So we want to thank Mr. Burns for his generous contribution to the students at McCain High School for their audiovisual program. And again, it's asking the board to approve that donation.
So is there a motion to accept the donation from Mr. Burns?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sabo seconds. Any discussion? We do really thank you, Mr. Burns. That's a wonderful donation. So Maria, a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Burns. And now we have another donation.
The next action item would be for the board to accept a generous donation by Mr. Anthony Glenn, who donated 2 checks totaling $2,000 to the Conrad Schools of Science for their football and cheerleading internal accounts. And so we want to thank Mr. Glenn for his generous contribution and ask that the board accept the donation.
Is there a motion to accept the generous donation from Mr. Anthony Glenn?
So moved.
Dr. Newton moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Bohm seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Maria, we need a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glenn.
The next action item is another generous donation from the Speech Clinic, who donated, I believe, between 325 to 350 books valued at $3,000 to the early years program for our students. And we want to thank Mrs. Marie and Chip Azar for their generous donation and support for the Red Clay Early Years program.
Is there a motion to accept the generous donation from the Speech Clinic and from the
So moved.
Azars?
So moved.
Dr. Bohm moves. Is there a second?
Second, Jose
Ms.
Matthews.
Sabo seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Maria, roll call
Dr.
vote, please.
Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Thank you very much to the speech clinic and the Azaras. Thank you very much. And now we move on to the consent agenda. So is there a motion to accept the consent, to approve the consent agenda as presented? Or to approve the consent items? A through D. Sorry, let me say it again, Faith, I'm sorry. It's the recommendation that the Red Clay Board of Education approve action consent items A through D as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you. Dr. Newton moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Ms. Sabo seconds. And we will have a vote, please, Maria.
Dr. Bone,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes,
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
thank you. So now we move on to the presentation of board policy under review 8003 by Dr. Broomall. Welcome, Dr. Broomall.
Good evening. Tonight, we're here for the first reading of a new policy, 8003, Education for Homeless Children and Youth. This policy was necessitated by a change in the regulation that requires school districts to have a policy on the education for homeless children and youth. It does not change any of the process or the law that we had followed previously. It's simply putting it in writing. The education of homeless children and youth essentially guarantees homeless children the same services afforded to all other children in the Red Clay School District. Next steps will be that this policy will be posted online tomorrow morning. We will have a board policy review committee meeting February 3rd at 5 o'clock in the district's office. And February 10th, we'll have a second reading and action item for the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Broomall. Any questions? Thank you very much. And now we move on to the superintendent's report. So Mr. Green, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, members of the board, staff, guests, and those who are joining us online this evening. Just wanted to get back into, obviously, not to state the obvious, but we started back with in-person learning and resumed on campus, Red Clay on campus, as of last week, starting on January 11th. Today is actually an asynchronous day, and we will resume with in-person learning tomorrow. We also set out information relative to our third marking period calendar. The third marking period will begin on February 1st, and students will come and remain in the phase 2 of our reopening plan, which basically means those who are currently in person will remain in person, and those who chose Red Clay remote will remain remote. And obviously schools will be working with families who had individual issues and or concerns. The district capacity, unfortunately, as we heard many of our teachers indicate, just with the notion of staffing, continues to be an ongoing issue as we work with our substitute service provider, also supporting student families, or excuse me, educators who may require telework. This pandemic obviously hasn't been ideal for anyone relative to staffing, and we use the resources that are available to us to support the schools at times. So operationally, to kind of reintroduce another full-fledged plan was one that we knew we didn't have the capacity to do. And so that was communicated to families prior to us returning after the winter break. Want to make note that the state, and as indicated again in some of the public comments, have the new school focus on the COVID dashboard. That dashboard leading up to our break was focused on the 3 gating criteria that really dealt with percent test positive, new cases and hospitalizations. And based on the health guidance from the Department of Health, that has now shifted to looking at in-person contagious cases within our schools as we monitor the impact of COVID relative to the school district and not necessarily the broader community spread that everyone was alluding to. And with that being said, and then again, hearing the concerns of our staff members from RCEA, we engage and will continue to engage with RCEA weekly. We did receive a list of concerns identified by buildings. They mentioned and gave us a general overview of their survey findings last Thursday. We did receive that in writing yesterday. And so we are committed and we'll re-engage with them tomorrow to go through. We have also made our buildings aware of those individual concerns within schools. And this isn't to divide our community. Again, we graciously come to the table on a weekly basis to hear these concerns from our staff members, from our teachers, and understanding that this is a complex issue that we're dealing with as a district. It was complex when we closed schools back on March 13th. It was complex when we started 6 weeks remotely. It was complex when we started the phase-in approach on October the 19th. It was complex when we had to take a pause per the state's guidance. It will continue to be complex as we wait for vaccinations, understanding that a vaccination, unfortunately, won't be a panacea. We can be proactive and respond as a community when we hear those concerns, whether they're elevated at an individual school level, a particular grade cluster, or district as a whole. And so we stand committed, I stand committed, not only just hearing the voices, but also responding to those voices and understanding that it does take a collective effort. You know, when we shut our buildings and when our schools are unfortunately closed, we see our community-based organizations and providers, in many instances, picking up that slack through learning pods throughout our community. One of our public commenters who unfortunately wasn't able to join us this evening is an integral partner, which is the Latin American Community Center, who services over 120 plus students daily with their learning pods. And they've been doing so since the start of the pandemic. And so these situations, again, aren't ideal for any of us. These decisions are not made in a vacuum, they're not made lightly. We can push back, and I will continue to advocate on behalf of our Red Clay educators, stakeholders, and families. When those gating criteria and the health guidance changes, I can only ask questions, but at the end of the day, I have to assume that our health experts are giving us the best guidance that we need at the time to ensure that we're providing a safe learning environment. And again, we all feel uncomfortable in certain situations and circumstances as it relates to this pandemic. You know, we don't know, you don't know, but we can only follow the guidance relative to ensuring that we wear masks, we practice physical distancing, proper hand hygiene, and again, responding to the concerns when we're made aware of them, and let's be proactive to address them in a manner that we can ensure, again, that we're doing the best we can on behalf of our students and families. Of the 8,522 families who made a choice that in-person learning was more appropriate for their children and their families. And also understanding that, again, many of our staff members felt like they don't have a choice. We do have a choice in continuing to work together to ensure that we're supportive, again, of our employees, and we address issues as they're made, as we're made aware of them. And so with that being said, the new dashboard, as of today, and this update gets updated weekly, has indicated since September the 1st, we've had roughly 63 in-person contagious staff cases, with I believe another 51 or so student cases. Being mindful, the state's dashboard is dating back to September the 1st, and we didn't offer any in-person learning starting until October the 19th. With that being said, and I've said it publicly and I'll continue to say it publicly, kudos to our school nurses who truly continually go above and beyond the call of duty as they deal with case notifications, lead investigations, contact tracing. And so I can't thank our school nurses enough for the work that they're doing and will continue to do throughout this unfortunate, challenging time with the pandemic. Prior to, we've routinely heard that there were issues concerning PPE and available PPE. We've added additional 3,000 face shields to our PPE supply that has been distributed to schools prior to our January 11th reopening. So thank you again to our nursing staff, our facilities department, and for anyone who has concerns or would like access to those resources, know that they are available in your building, and it's just a simple ask, again, of that PPE and anything required to make you feel safer than you generally may feel had you not had access to specific resources. And so again, this supply was a contribution from Hardwire, which we did acknowledge last month in coordination with Senator Coons Nemours, Red Clay School District, and Donate Delaware. So again, we thank Hardwire and those who provided that for those generous contributions of personal protective equipment, PPE, to Red Clay schools. Just yesterday, there was a new announcement with regards to changes in transitioning to vaccinations for phase 1B, which comprises of individuals who are 65 years or older, as well as educators who are in that particular phase of 1B. The registration for the Delaware new vaccination roster did open today. The Department of Education also released information and will be providing multiple vaccination opportunities for Delaware educators and school staff of K-12 public education, private, as well as district early learning centers across the state. That will be a three-prong approach. Those are drive-through clinics on sites at schools and a partnership with Acme and Safeway pharmacies in each of the three counties that will make available for individual appointments for educators and school staff. And so we're still awaiting some of that information. We also have a survey out to our employees per the Department of Education. It's really a 3-question survey. The first question is when available. Do you plan on being vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine? As of maybe about an hour ago, we had 1,920 respondents to that survey, with roughly about 77% of those respondents indicating that they will take the vaccination once made available to them. And again, that availability should start hopefully as early as next week, according to the Department of Education. An additional 15% indicated that they were unsure, and about 9%, which was roughly 162 of those respondents, indicated that they would not take the vaccine. Interesting enough, the second question on this survey is if uncomfortable, please indicate if you're 65 years, excuse me, if comfortable, please indicate if you're 65 years or older or have chronic health conditions, and would you take it? So roughly 18 or so percent indicated, about 256 people, that they would take it and that they were 65 years or older. And so as a district, again, trying to be proactive in hearing our employees' concerns, we sourced a medical practice, the ENT and Allergy of Delaware, ENT, ear, nose, and throat, Dr. Neil Hochstein and his staff, Ms. Emily Harrington, to actually start that process earlier for Red Clay. So we have an opportunity tomorrow where many of our staff members, or some of our staff members, while a small number, will actually receive the vaccination starting as early as tomorrow here in Red Clay. So we want to thank Dr. Neil Hochstein and Emily Harrington and the folks over at the ENT and Allergy Delaware for providing us this opportunity. I will say this and thank Ms. Myrna Laws and Chris Smith through our HR department for doing cold calls. We called roughly, we had about 60 slots. And again, this was available within 24 hours of this being announced. We had 36 individuals who committed to participating in it. And so while we can survey and encourage folks to take the vaccination, I think through this learning process, it's also indicative that additional education needs to happen around the safety of the vaccination. While the survey results are anonymous, when it comes time to folks actually receiving that vaccination, there's a lot of misinformation that continues to be out there. And so the third question in the survey spoke to if comfortable, and I would think it should actually read, if uncomfortable, please share the reasons why you are unsure or do not plan on being vaccinated. And there were pretty much 3 general buckets. Those that felt like the vaccination was too rushed and there wasn't enough science behind it. Several of our staff members indicated that they are either expecting and have some concerns because there's not research around the impact on those who might be pregnant. And then lastly, folks just generally felt that, again, they didn't know the type of vaccination and they didn't have enough information to be sure that they wanted to take it at this time. And there were a couple outliers, when indicating that they didn't want to be microchipped with a vaccination, which I think, again, is clear that there tends to be some misinformation. And we also know within minority groups, within Black and brown communities, and experiences that our communities have had with mass vaccinations and vaccination programs, the disproportionate outcomes and mistreatment of individuals and people of color as it relates to vaccination. So there is some education that needs to happen and needs to take place. So we will be reaching out again to our health community to help and support with providing adequate education so that we can provide as many vaccinations to those who choose to take it and keep our community healthy and safe. And with that idea of just the vaccine being a panacea, I think it is a challenge because our quarantine measures would still be in effect even with vaccinations. Again, so this is all the more reason why we need to band together as a community. And if we waited until everyone got a second dose of a vaccine, I would hate to say it, but our schools will probably be closed for the remainder of the school year. And so again, we have to be mindful as we weigh these decisions around not only just the overall physical health and safety and well-being, but truly being mindful of the mental and emotional and psychological health and well-being, of our children. And so this isn't to play sides or to play to the divide that continues to be out in the public space. It really is to bring us together. And so know that as a superintendent, as a district office and team, we stand committed to not only engaging, but providing any and all supports and resources we can to support our Red Clay community. And again, thank you to the folks at ENT and Allergy of Delaware. And I think that's one of the many examples that we want to point to show that we're trying our best to be proactive to provide our community with the resources available to help them feel healthy and safe. And so this particular slide, again, just kind of outlines the timeline and that prioritization within 1B right now. And I'm looking for individuals who are 65 years or older to get vaccinated. And again, that portal opened up today. And so again, vaccinations in Red Clay, happy to report that all of our school nurses did participate in the state vaccination program. In addition to receiving the vaccines, and this is a picture of Nurse Bridge, who is an RN, one of our school nurses. Red Clay Early Years program at Richardson Park, our lead nurse, Mandy Pennington, who's the supervisor of our health services, along with Sharon Gross, Gugola, the school nurse at Stanton Middle School, stepped up to help administer vaccines to nurses and first responders at the event that was held at Delaware City. So not only are they supporting, Red Clay, they are giving of their time to help their community at large. And they also so graciously offer their supports to the ENT and Allergy of Delaware as well to support their efforts as we vaccinate not only our staff, but supporting our community as a whole. So thank you again to our school nurses. And this event actually took place on July 12th. Again, another example, the slide on here again shows that the Department of Education will be providing multiple vaccine opportunities. Again, earlier mentioned the drive-through clinics on sites at schools and then the pharmacies and work in consultation with the Acme's and Safeway pharmacies. And they will identify within each of our counties to provide individual appointments for staff members who want. And it's my understanding that there will be upwards of 6 locations per day with 200 at each location, offering upwards of 1,200 shots or vaccination opportunities for educators. The Department of Education also, and this might be a little difficult, just kind of provided a phased approach that also aligns with the Department of Health and the new guidelines around phase 1B. The Department of Education stages are 1 through 3 for educators and support staff. Stage 1 being, again, those who are 65 years or older with high and medium risk chronic medical conditions, or those who work within special populations that have limited opportunity to follow public health measures such as maintaining physical distance and wearing face coverings. And we know our populations, such as our early years program, those who work with students with special needs, and obviously hearing some comments from some of our staff members, those who are working within those primary grades where it might be a little bit more challenging and difficult for our students to, adhere on a consistent basis to those social or physical distance measurements. Phase or stage 2 within 1B are individuals whose job responsibilities require them to directly interact with students. And obviously our custodial staff, or school transportation, school nutrition, those staff members as well would fall within those particular categories. And then stage 3 are individuals in one or more of the following, whose job responsibilities can be or currently accomplished at home. So anyone who's teaching remote, who isn't coming into school, or those who might have telework opportunities and not necessarily coming in person will fall under the stage 3. So again, these are the measures that have been outlined by the Delaware Department of Education. And so, as President Thompson mentioned, today was a historic day for the nation and the state. As President Joe Biden was sworn into office and Vice President Kamala Harris as the first African-American Black and Vice President. But yesterday also was a unique opportunity for Red Clay as Governor Carney was sworn into office with his 2021 virtual inauguration ceremony. Had a wonderful opportunity for Red Clay to have a presence and many of our staff members participating in that. And so I want to just give a brief or a quick shout out to Principal Maddox, Brian Maddox, who's the principal over at McCain High School, who was featured in here. You may not see him on the video, but if you want to see Mr. Maddox, he's at the 17-minute, 26-second mark of the inauguration. And also Melanie Murray, who's an English teacher over at Thomas McCain High School. She's at the 16-minute, 28-second mark of this. But we also had our Teacher of the Year, Kim Stock, Jill Pedrick, Jason Martin, Principal Martin from Richardson Park, Principal Mark Phelps, Melissa Longo, who's the school counselor over at William C. Lewis Dual Language Program, and Carolina Beck, who oversees our supervisor of English learners within Red Clay. So just want to give a brief shout out to them, but also show a snippet of their participation in the governor's inauguration yesterday.
2021 is a year of hope and optimism. It won't be easy. There's a lot of work ahead. But I'm confident that Delaware will come out of this current crisis stronger than ever. 4 years ago, I promised to get our fiscal house in order. We kept that promise. As a result, unlike so many states around the country, Delaware is not facing a budget challenge this year. That means we're well positioned to rebuild, as President-elect Biden says, to build back better. We made promises last year before the pandemic hit, and I intend to make good on that. We will create jobs by investing in the largest infrastructure program in our state's history. We will make sure every Delaware family has clean drinking water. We will build a new school on the east side of Wilmington. It'll be the first new school in Delaware's largest city in more than a generation. We'll make historic investments in public schools statewide, focus on the students who need our help the most. We'll continue strengthening our economy, and we'll help those businesses recover that have been hit hard by the pandemic. My job as governor is to make sure Delaware comes out on top in a world that's more connected and more competitive than ever, and to make sure all Delawareans get a fair shot to succeed.
I wanted to talk to everybody about opportunity funding. We've been able to hire 28 instructional staff to support both our English learners and our students of low SES.
We used our opportunity funding grant to fund my position as an English language teacher. 65% of the students who I supported in a small group setting were able to meet their growth goals on the annual access exam.
The staff has been able to provide our English learners and low-income students with counseling and behavioral interventions and support.
We've also utilized some funding and staffing to provide targeted professional development opportunities for our teachers and staff, so they have in-depth understanding of our students, their needs, and how to best address them, both as a school community as well as in the classroom.
I always wanted to come tomorrow and be a preschool teacher, and I'm so thankful that this grant has done that for me.
I look forward to expanding my small group as well as working with the students to help them become their own advocate.
I was hoped to see the trend continue when we are able to support both students, those who have a need for extra supports in reading and those who have extra supports with social and emotional learning.
My hope is that we will continue to receive these opportunity funds for years to come.
Thank you. So again, thank you to the Red Clay staff members who gave her their time, and first and foremost, your commitment to our low-income students as well as our English learners, and ensuring that the resources that are being provided to support those students are being maximized and going to good use. So again, thank you to all of our Red Clay staff members who participated in that virtual inauguration. And so on Monday, which many had a day off, in celebration or recognition of Dr. Martin Luther King Day. It was a day on for many throughout Red Clay. I had the fortune of participating in a community-wide event that I've been doing probably for the past 9 years now in support of One Village Alliance, which is a global nonprofit company that supports students, not only here, but in various other places, really providing an opportunity through education, entrepreneurship, and the arts to really reach their full potential, to be the next king-like generation. And so, again, had a wonderful opportunity. Was surprised that Fox 29 actually was there first thing in the morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock. And, it was a fitting way to not only start the day, but to volunteer and support those community efforts in the legacy of Dr. King. Not only did I have an opportunity, many across our district also, Mr. Bolden, Anthony Gray Bolden, principal over at Moat Elementary, spent the day at Port Richmond, where he picked up musical instruments for students at Anna P. Moat Elementary School at a donation event led by Musicopia. And we also have pictured here students at Stanton Middle School. They spent their day helping pack and distribute food boxes for families in need. And so for those who spent the day on and not the day off, thank you for your service and volunteerism and supporting the community. And just a quote from Dr. King, and I think this is fitting, just for everything that we're dealing with. And Dr. King said that change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. And we will continue as a district on so many levels, having to work together to get through a lot of the struggles that we face as a community. And so again, even through the hard times, and there are probably, again, more hard times now, more so than ever, I'm thankful and I'm hopeful and appreciative of the staff members, of the leadership in this community, knowing that we will have better days as long as we continue to work together to get through these continuous struggles. We also want to thank Red Clay Mentors. January is National Mentoring Month. So thank you to all of the dedicated individuals who continue to support our students, whether that's virtually or in other creative ways during these challenging times. So thank you to our mentors. And if you have a desire to mentor, but figure that you can't do it during this pandemic, again, there are organizations who are out there. There are children, so reach out to, various nonprofits and others who could provide those opportunities to serve as mentorship. Mentorship is critical to not only the success of our community and our schools, but more importantly, to the individual children who are so fortunate to have one. So the students, and again, with today being such a historic day, with the swearing in of President Biden, many of our schools, and in particular the John Dickinson School with Ms. Shauna Harrison's class, plan on coming together tomorrow to talk about their feelings with the first president being sworn in from our home state here in Delaware. And so we know, through a lot of this, there's lots of relevant learning taking place. And so we're thankful for educators such as Ms. Harrison, who are engaging students in such a relevant and comprehensive way. She also works through an ethnic studies course, which focuses on themes of social justice, social responsibility, and social change. The course spans from past to present, from politics to social reform, allowing students to identify similar social patterns and universal qualities present in other societies, including their own. This course, again, will be focused on different groups such as Blacks and African Americans, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, LGBTQ, American Indians, and other groups. So, we're fortunate again that we're using this opportunity as we live history to not only process it, but to help our students and ultimately learn from our students. Again, as we continue to elevate this platform of student voice, it's another example of how we're engaging this generation to help inform, not only how they're learning, but what they're learning. So Thank you to Ms. Harrison and all of our other educators across the district who are taking advantage of those opportunities. And just another kudos, our manager of transportation, Ms. Kelly Shahan, has been selected to be a presenter at the STN Expo virtual conference on January 26th. Ms. Shahan will be sharing with transportation departments around the country how Red Clay data, how we use the data to plan for pandemic ridership. So for those students who are taking advantage of the district transportation, they have the touchless scan-in process where you just use a badge to scan in, hand sanitizer stations being outfitted on that bus. And so again, another point of pride for us to have our lead, Ms. Kelly Shahan, go and help the nation understand how Red Clay was the first district in the state to incorporate innovative technology to track and locate our buses and students at all times, and also to monitor student ridership. Since the implementation of this technology, our district has saved close to $1 million in state funding and improved our on-time rate from roughly 70% to a range between anywhere between 92 to 98%. So thank you not only to Ms. Shahan for her leadership, but to the men and women who are transporting that precious cargo daily. And even in this pandemic, they haven't stopped, whether that was delivering meals, providing our tech bus, or our education station. You know, we've relied heavily on our transportation department through this pandemic. And so we thank again Ms. Shahan for putting Red Clay on the national stage, but more importantly, all of our transportation employees who have been doing a wonderful job throughout this pandemic. And it's not too late to support our nominees for the Life Changer of the Year. So please go to lifechangeroftheyear.com/show spirit. Again, we have 11 nominees throughout Red Clay who have been nominated for Life Changer of the Year. This is a national program that recognizes educators for their positive difference making in the lives of the students, of our students. And so we're so proud of these nominees. And please join me and join us in congratulating them for their worthy recognition. Natalie Alexander, who's a third grade teacher at North Star Elementary. Leah Faulkner, second grade teacher at Linda Hill. Kelly Firko, who is a kindergarten teacher over at Richardson Park and RCA president. Irene Harrison, the middle school teacher, middle school art teacher, and a problem solving team leader at Brandywine Springs School. Caroline Jeanette, third grade teacher at Highlands Elementary. Equetta Jones, assistant principal at Highlands Elementary. Laura Martin, first grade teacher at Cook. We have Jessica McCarthy, kindergarten teacher at North Star. Noreen Seth, paraprofessional at Highlands Elementary School. Nancy Smith, mentor at Highlands Elementary School. And John Thompson, eighth grade teacher at HB DuPont Middle School. And there are a lot of life changers over at Highlands. So it seems to be some stiff competition in terms of Highland staff getting nominated. But thank you to those who have been nominated, and more importantly, all the life changers throughout Red Clay. And before I close, we are coming up, as we close out the month of January, we'll be approaching the first week of February. So February 1st to the 5th is National School Counseling Week. While we had the pleasure of acknowledging our school psychologists, equally as important are the work that school counselors do throughout our schools. So National School Counseling Week 2021 is in support of school counselors and all they do for students. And I guess the tagline is school counselors all in for all students. Will be celebrated from February 1st to the 5th to focus on public attention on the unique contribution of school counselors within school systems. So again, thank you to all of our school counselors throughout Red Clay. And for anyone who, again, wants to keep up on more information, please continue to check out This Week in Red Clay. That gets distributed, and you can subscribe at redclayschools.com. That concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Green. So now we move on to items submitted by the board. It's probably best if we order the way in which we go. I'm happy to go first. Does anybody else have anything to add? Dr. Newton is shaking her head no. No for Mr. Wilson. No for Ms. Sabo at this point. And I don't know about the people.
Do we have
remotely.
anything from Mr. Matthews or Dr. Bohm?
I do.
So you can go ahead if you'd like, Dr. Bohm.
You're more than welcome to go first.
Okay. I attended the Community Financial Review Committee on January 12th. We are fortunate to have 4 new community members, all of whom attended the meeting, and it's really great to have new members, and all are welcome. Good additions. Ms. Flory created a listing for us of how our CARES money was spent. All of it was accounted for and expended, and it's fair to say that the vast majority was spent on technology and technology access, although there were other funds as well, but if anybody wants the listing, we have that. Tax receipts were generally on target, though as I mentioned last month, they had dropped, and we had expected a bigger drop, but that didn't really come through. State funding, as everybody probably knows, is at the 99% level versus the 98%, which is very welcome for us, especially as we have lost units due to enrollment. The revenue was at 91.94% received, but we still owe money for tuition and charter payments in the state give back, and 47.6% expended. All were in line with last year, so we're really in pretty good shape. The Red Clay budget, which is typically provided in January, is being postponed till, I believe, February, but no promises on that, but I believe that's forthcoming. I think we're waiting to hear what the governor has to say. And that's, we're in good shape, and that's what I have to say about the CFRC. So, Dr. Bohm?
So there was no diversity meeting since the last time our board met, so I do not have a report on that. But I did want to provide the board and the community an update on the Black American Studies class legislation and the resolution. So the committee met a number of times over the holidays, and it is a very broad coalition of people. It's multiracial, multicultural, cross-county. So we have people from Newcastle County, we have people from Sussex and Kent counties on the committee. There are a variety of professions that are represented, and the committee spans generations. So we have numerous 16 and 17-year-olds on the committee. We have people all the way up to 80, 82, 83, and we actually have a direct descendant of Harriet Tubman on our committee. So it's a very enthusiastic and exciting committee to sit on. And I wanted to thank State Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker for her leadership and her vision on broadening the curricula by centering the contributions of Africans, Black Americans, and members of the African diaspora. So as soon as legislation is finalized on the state level, we will bring our resolution to the board. And thank you.
Okay, and next is Mr. Matthews. We can't hear you, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, President Thompson. I'm now I was on mute. That would help.
Okay,
So,
good.
thank you, Dr. Bohm, for your update. And I'm certainly looking forward to the resolution. I know at the last meeting, we kind of brought it up to the community. It's a really good work there. Thank you for that report. And hi, Representative Dorsey Walker. Thank you so much for being on our call. It's always good to see our legislators on the calls and engaging. So we really certainly appreciate your support and for joining us tonight. I did not have a facility committees meeting. I reported on that last month. We have our meetings quarterly. So within this past month, we did not have a meeting. We did have a CAB Fund Foundation meeting. Just a couple of updates there. Thank you, Superintendent Green, for bringing up that this month is mentoring month. So we did have we do have a mentoring program with the CAB Fund. So if that is something that anybody in the community is looking to be interested in getting themselves involved with, there's certainly more information on their website. We do have a mentoring program available. And that was one of the things that we had discussed at the meeting, also providing some updates with Smart Summer, developmental updates and where we are financially, which is rough this year because of COVID-19. So fundraising needs and a lot of the programming that we provide at CAB is heavily relied on donors and heavily relied on funding because the state does not fully fund that program and fully fund that program for Red Clay. So those are my committee reports. And I also wanted to and throw this to the board. I know that at the last board meeting, we briefly spoke about the opportunity of having the Teacher of the Year come and speak at our meeting. And I was wondering if we could add her an opportunity to the agenda for the next meeting to come do a special report to hear a little bit more about her platform and how we can help best support her for this upcoming year. And that is the conclusion of my item submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kathy, I just have
No, and just
DSBA.
Before.
Oh,
can I get my mic
sorry.
on?
Mr. Green's mic needs to be on.
Before we conclude, I just wanted to make our community aware, and Dr. Bohm prompted this response. It's a journey towards education justice. So the Wilmington Metropolitan Urban League, specifically the Wilmington Center for Education Equity and Policy, on Monday, January 25th at 7 p.m., will hold a community conversation entitled Who's in the Room? This is a multi-generation discussion that will explore a snapshot of diverse experiences within schooling Wilmington citizens have had or encountered. So to get more information, you can go to the www.wilmingtoncenterforeducationequity.com, and there's a free registration at www.buytickets.at/MWUL, which stands for the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. So I just wanted to give the Urban League a plug for their event on Monday, A Journey Towards Education Justice. So.
Thank you. Okay. If hearing nothing, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dr. Newton moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sabo seconds. And this one we'll just do a roll call vote for. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. We appreciate you coming out.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Good night.